how to get rich or how to get rich quick. When I open up YouTube and enter these two sentences into the search bar, I get a ton of video recommendation for videos that tackle that problem. Clickbait titles like "Get Rich Quick." Can you really get rich quick? Fastest way to get rich in 2021. An aggressive plan to get rich fast. 5 ways to get rich quick. And the most honest advice about getting rich. All of these videos are great content and offer really great advice. And the thing is, mostly they focus on technical things that are quite obvious. If you want to get rich, have an income, of course, saving helps, and also learning how to invest. But there is actually one thing that I consider to be very important for those who want to become successful. It's not creating businesses or going on the equity side, is another one. And when you think about it, it makes a whole lot of sense. The next time when you go out, look around in the bar you are in, or discotheque, or whatever, or restaurant, and ask yourself the question, how many billionaires are in the room with you? And you will be surprised about the answer. So mostly none. And there is one particular reason and one pattern that I found in almost all people that really created wealth and had the ability to grow the wealth over decades. There is one habit that all of them did. And actually, it's a series of habits. And in this video, I have highlighted 2 wealthy people who gave some insights into their lifestyle and talk about how they do with nutrition. The first video is an interview of Christian Angermayer held by Anthony Pompliano. And the second one is a conversation between Lex Fridman and Jack Dorsey, who created companies like Twitter, Square/Blog. Listen to these 2 guys and what they say about nutrition. Enjoy the video.
When you think of what you eat from a diet standpoint, what do you follow a specific type of diet?
So what is the main things? The main thing is actually what you said, like intermittent fasting. So I haven't eaten anything today. So I'm doing 18 hours with 0 calorie intake, just water and black coffee, but no calorie intake. Yeah, which is, by the way, any form of fasting is great. That's just the fasting which works for me. It's sort of my daily rhythm. Like other people do 5-day fasting and then eat normally. So I do like 16 to 18 hours, no calorie intake. Why? You said it's counterintuitive, but like your body goes into like a laundry mode, you could say it that way. Like, so if it's flushing out senescent cells, it's really rejuvenating. And it starts around about hour 14 that you go into that sort of state. So the longer actually you can be, if you could be, sometimes I make a full day without food or without anything, that is actually ideal. I try to not eat a lot of carbs. Maybe the healthy ones, lentils, whatever, but not the bad ones, carbs, pasta, blah, blah, blah. I actually take metformin. That is, I think, sort of from the medical side, the most we know potent.
You said metformin?
Metformin, yeah, which is actually a diabetes drug, but which seems to mimic fasting. And then there is a newer version, which actually is interesting because I always have in psychedelics with some people that discussion about patents, like is it allowed to patent psychedelic substances because it's God's given things. And I think patents are inherently important for drug development, which we unfortunately see with metformin, because metformin is a diabetes drug which is out of patent. It's super cheap. So there are great studies, but not FDA studies. So more like looking at people who take metformin, how they age, whatever, which suggests that metformin is incredibly healthy, but no pharma company is putting the money up to prove it in an FDA-like framework because they can't make money with it. So it would be great if metformin is in patent again, because people would then hopefully prove it. Like somebody did it, Novo Nordisk has a drug called Ozempic, which is also a diabetes drug. So it shows, by the way, that it seems to be that
So when you take metformin, what does it do to you?
So it's kind of, in a non-medical way, it's mimicking fasting.
Got it.
Yeah, it's controlling your insulin spike, and that whole world of taking food, especially sugar or sugar-like foods, which makes your insulin spike, whatever, that seems to over the course of our life be one of the drivers for inflammation, cardiovascular diseases, whatever. So metformin, sort of in a more complex way than I can describe it now, but is sort of
bringing that back.
Now. And the same is Ozempic, but what I was saying is like, because it's in patent, they've proven it. So Ozempic now has been FDA approved, not just for diabetes, but for weight loss, and for prevention of cardiovascular diseases.
Okay. Do you take anything else like NAD or anything?
Yes, everything. Things? I take 50 pills a day.
Whoa.
But that's like really got to like three.
All right. So metformin.
So metformin. What are the essentials? Metformin. I take NAD plus.
What does NAD plus do for folks? I just pulled up very quickly. This is a paper in Science that basically talks about NAD plus and aging metabolism and neurodegeneration, right? And basically the whole idea is a lot of aging comes down to metabolism, the destruction of your cells, the faster deterioration of them, et cetera. And so each one of these things, I'm assuming that you're taking, has some impact. Some of them are directly, some of them are indirectly, whatever, insulin. It all plays into this complex system that is the human body. But that's essentially what you're trying to get at, is to slow down the deterioration of the cells, or even potentially building them back up, and kind of the idea that you can reverse your biological age versus your chronological age is, appears to be possible, according to some of these guys.
Yeah, there's this great study. You can do it with human growth hormones. Like there was these, I think it was Stanford study, if 70-year-old men take human growth hormones, metformin and DHEA. And then the question is, by the way, we're coming to an interesting point. What is actually, how do we measure sort of age, like sort of not your age in birth years, but in like how you appear or how you feel, which we don't have yet. And Stanford was the first one, I think it was Stanford, who developed like a scale. We're like, okay, if we give these 20 men like human growth hormones, metformin and DHEA, how can we measure if they really rejuvenate? And they came up with a number of biomarkers, whatever, which is, by the way, one of the tasks we have to do. And Cambrian, James just started a big sort of think tank where we sort of align all, let's call it longevity biotech companies. Because at the moment, if you go to the FDA and say, hey, I found the wonder pill, which makes us live 10 years longer, it's really hard to get an approval, or actually even the study approved, because you're not solving for a real problem, because aging and dying is not classified as a disease. So what all these aging companies do at the moment, and this is what Cambrian, for example, and I have another one in Europe, Rejuveron, these are my two aging plays. What they're doing is like, you have to find drugs which have an imminent, immediate effect on a certain disease. And then you can approve it for that disease. But you have a second layer effect that okay, once I have approved it for this single disease, everybody will take it because it's so beneficial. I give you one example. We're working on one drug, actually pretty advanced. So the shortening of the telomeres is one other in these 9 hallmarks of aging.
Have you guys, just real quick, have you guys read the telomere effect?
No.
You should read it. Basically, for those, in the most elementary example, your shoelace, it has on the end of the shoelace the plastic caps.
Yep.
Basically, every single one of your DNA strands has these like essentially caps to them. And as they get shorter, the shorter your telomeres get, basically the more aging you have, the shorter your lifespan will be. And so there's a bunch of things that you can do, like in immense stress, bad eating, whatever, to accelerate the shortening of the caps. But also the belief is that maybe you can slow down the shortening, or potentially could you reverse it? Could you actually extend back the caps so that you're essentially reversing kind of the negative effect on telomeres?
Yeah. So. And it's amazing, like perfectly explained. And there's
I don't just know about Bitcoin, but I just like talking about Bitcoin.
Fascinating. And you have a childhood disease, and everybody of us has seen that, because once in a while the media is like, oh, look at this child. It's like, looks like an 80-year-old, but is 19. Like, so there is a disease where the telomeres shrink and shorten in rapid speed. And then, unfortunately, children who have this disease look with 15 like an 80-year-old, which is showing that. So we have a drug in phase 1, but so a little bit advanced, but not years away, but like sort of in the middle of drug development, which we think has the potential to cure the childhood disease. So that is a real disease. I can go to the FDA. It's actually even an orphan disease, so I can get very quick approval because these children are dying when they are 20. But obviously, if I get a drug approved which stops shortening of the telomeres, for these children, very clear use case, then I would take it as well if it stops the shortening of my telomeres. Yeah. So, and this is at the moment how all longevity companies do these workaround. So they find a molecule or a compound and they have an assumption, but they always have to prove it in a concrete disease. And I hope, and this is what we're lobbying for, that in some years, the sooner the better, especially the FDA as the sort of number one regulator in the world, is saying, well, let's define biomarkers which define aging. And if you can change these biomarkers positively, so if you sort of can slow down and provenly slow down aging, we do approve that because we agree with you. This is what it is. Aging is a disease, yeah, and we have to sort of solve it.
So I think you and I eat similar diets, and at least I was...
The first time I've heard this.
Yeah, so I was doing it
First time anyone has said that to me, in this case anyway.
Yeah, but it's becoming more and more cool. But I was doing it before it was cool. So the intermittent fasting and fasting in general, I really enjoy. I love food, but I enjoy I also love suffering because I'm Russian. So fasting kind of makes you appreciate what it is to be human somehow. So, but I have outside the philosophical stuff, I have a more specific question. It also helps me as a programmer and a deep thinker, like from the scientific perspective, to sit there for many hours and focus deeply. Maybe you were a hacker before you were CEO. What have you learned about diet, lifestyle, mindset that helps you maximize mental performance, to be able to focus, to think deeply in this world of distractions?
I think I just took it for granted for too long.
Which aspect?
Just the social structure of we eat 3 meals a day and there's snacks in between. And I just never really asked the question, why?
Oh, by the way, in case people don't know, I think a lot of people know, but you famously eat once a day.
Yeah.
You still eat once a day?
Yep. I eat dinner.
By the way, what made you decide to eat once a day? Like, because to me, that was a huge revolution, that you don't have to eat breakfast. That was like, I felt like I was a rebel. Like like abandoned my parents or something and became an anarchist.
When you first, like the first week you start doing it, it feels you kind of like have a superpower.
Yeah.
And then you realize it's not really a superpower. But I think you realize, at least I realized, like it just how much our mind dictates what we're possible of. And sometimes we have structures around us that incentivize, like, this 3 meal a day thing, which was purely social structure versus necessity for our health and for our bodies. And I did it I started doing it because I played a lot with my diet when I was a kid, and I was vegan for 2 years and just went all over the place. Just because health is the most precious thing we have, and none of us really understand it. So being able to ask the question through experiments that I can perform on myself and learn about, is compelling to me. And I heard this one guy on a podcast, Wim Hof, who's famous for doing ice baths and holding his breath and all these things. He said he only eats 1 meal a day. I'm like, wow, that sounds super challenging and uncomfortable. I'm gonna do it. So I learn the most when I make myself, I wouldn't say suffer, but when I make myself feel uncomfortable, because everything comes to bear in those moments, and you really learn what you're about or what you're not. So I've been doing that my whole life. Like when I was a kid, I could not speak. Like I had to go to a speech therapist, and it made me extremely shy. And then one day I realized I can't keep doing this, and I signed up for the speech club, and it was the most uncomfortable thing I could imagine doing. Getting a topic on a note card, having 5 minutes to write a speech about whatever that topic is, not being able to use the note card when I was speaking, and speaking for 5 minutes about that topic. So, but it it gave me so much perspective around the power of communication, around my own deficiencies, and around if I set my mind to do something, I'll do it. So it gave me a lot more confidence. So I see fasting in the same light. This is something that was interesting, challenging, uncomfortable, and has given me so much learning and benefit as a result. And it will lead to other things that I'll experiment with and play with. But yeah, it does feel a little bit like a superpower sometimes. The most boring superpower one can imagine.
No, it's quite incredible. The clarity of mind is pretty interesting.